Caitlin Clark said when she got interviewed at Team USA camp, where she said, yes, we need to fight for things we want, but ultimately, we need to compromise. We need to compromise and we need to play basketball.
The WNBA just voted to potentially destroy everything Caitlin Clark built. 98% of players said yes to a strike, but 3 players said no. And the internet thinks one of them is Caitlin Clark herself. This isn't just about a labor dispute anymore. This is about whether the league will sacrifice its first real superstar for a payday they might never see. The owners just called the players liars. The players are threatening to cancel the season. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, Caitlin Clark might be the only person in the room with common sense. Let me break down what's actually happening here, because the headlines don't tell you the real story. The WNBA Players Association announced they have the votes to authorize a strike. That means they could shut down the entire 2026 season. No games, no playoffs, no Caitlin Clark breaking viewership records, just silence. The vote breakdown is wild. 98% voted yes. But here's what matters. 3 players voted no. Some players didn't even vote at all. And if you've been paying attention to what Caitlin Clark has been saying, you know exactly where she stands on this mess. At Team USA camp, Caitlin gave an interview that basically went against everything the union leadership was pushing. She said, "We need to fight for what we want, but we also need to compromise. We need to play basketball." Those were her exact words: compromise and play basketball. Compare that to what Kelsey Plum said, what Brianna Stewart said, what Nafisa Collier said at the Unrivaled press conference. They are all singing a completely different tune. They are talking about not backing down, about getting everything they deserve, about how this is their moment. Caitlin Clark is over here like, maybe we should actually have a season.
And then Nafisa Collier tried to make it seem like they were all on the same page, and she lied because Caitlin Clark clearly is not on the same page as.
And then Nafisa tried to smooth it over, tried to make it seem like everyone was on the same page, but they are not. Caitlin Clark clearly isn't reading from the same script. Which brings us to the big question: was Caitlin Clark one of the 3 who voted no? The internet certainly thinks so. And honestly, based on everything we've seen, it makes perfect sense that she's the one player in that league who actually understands what's at stake here. She's the reason viewership is up. She's the reason corporate sponsors are paying attention. She's the reason the WNBA is finally getting mainstream coverage. And now the union wants to gamble all of that momentum on a work stoppage. Let's talk about what the owners are offering, because this is where it gets really interesting. According to the latest reports, the WNBA's proposal includes uncapped revenue sharing. Maximum salaries would jump from $249,000 to over $1.3 million. That's more than 5 times higher. Average salaries would go from $120,000 to over $530,000. Minimum salaries would jump from $66,000 to over $250,000 in year 1 alone. And these numbers would keep growing over the life of the deal. We're talking about average salaries reaching $770,000 and max salaries approaching $2 million. Read those numbers again. This isn't some insulting lowball offer. This is a massive increase across the board, but apparently it's not enough. The union wants 30% of gross revenue. The owners looked at that proposal and basically said, not happening. And here's where the union president, Netica Ogamite, comes in. She went on ESPN and said, despite the strike authorization, players still want to play next season. Which, okay, that sounds reasonable until you keep reading. She said negotiations feel like they are still in their infancy. In their infancy. We're almost at Christmas. The original deadline was October 31st. They extended to January 9th, and negotiations are still in their infancy. What exactly have they been doing for the past 2 months?
Figures are massive increases. Agumake says the revenue sharing model proposed by the league is not adequate, especially with the level of creativity and innovation from our side to try and meet them closer to their side of the table, because that hasn't been extended to us.
The owners clearly think they've been negotiating in good faith. In fact, the ownership group released a statement calling the union's characterization dishonest. They said quality offers have been made. They said the players are not being honest with the public. Those are strong words. That's basically calling the union liars on the record. So, who's telling the truth here? Are the owners offering historic pay increases and the players are moving goalposts? Or are the players fighting for fair value and the owners are playing hardball? Because from where I'm sitting, both sides are dug in, and neither wants to blink first. But here's what nobody's talking about. The real victim in all of this isn't the players or the owners. It's the momentum. The WNBA finally has mainstream attention. Caitlin Clark brought millions of eyeballs to a league that was struggling to fill arenas. Corporate sponsors are lining up. TV deals are getting renegotiated. This is the golden moment the league has been waiting for since it started. And they're about to blow it over a labor dispute. You know what kills momentum faster than anything? A work stoppage. Ask baseball how the 1994 strike worked out for them. Ask hockey about the 2004 lockout. These leagues lost casual fans who never came back. The WNBA doesn't have the luxury of losing casual fans. They just got them. Caitlin Clark brought in people who never watched women's basketball before. You think those people are going to stick around through a cancelled season? You think they are going to care about union negotiations and revenue-sharing percentages? They are going to move on to something else. And that's exactly what Caitlin Clark understands, that apparently 98% of the league doesn't. This isn't the NBA. The WNBA can't afford to play chicken with its own future. They need to be playing games, building the brand, and capitalizing on this moment while it lasts. But instead, we're talking about strikes. We're talking about work stoppages. We're talking about a union that authorized a nuclear option and then says they don't want to use it. So why authorize it in the first place? To scare the owners, to show unity, because all it's doing is scaring the fans. Nneka Umik said the vote is a symbol of unity and confidence. She said they want a fair deal that represents their value. But here's my question. What happens when your value drops, because you can let a season? What happens when the casual fans disappear? What happens when the TV networks start rethinking those contracts? The union seems to think they have all the leverage here. But do they really? The owners can wait this out. They've been subsidizing this league for decades. Most of them are billionaires who own NBA teams. This is a passion project for them, not their main source of income, but for the players, this is their career. This is their window. And that window is a lot shorter than they think. Caitlin Clark gets this. She's 22 years old, and she's already the most marketable player in league history. She could probably make more money from endorsements than from her WNBA salary, but she still wants to play. She still wants the league to succeed, because she understands that a rising tide lifts all boats. If the WNBA becomes must-watch TV, everyone benefits. Players, owners, sponsors, fans, everyone. But if they cancel the season, if they lose this momentum, it might never come back. And 10 years from now, people are going to look back at this moment and ask, what were they thinking? They had everything lined up. They had the superstar. They had the attention. They had the money flowing in. And they blew it over a labor dispute. 3 players saw this coming. 3 players voted no. And I'm willing to bet everything that one of those players was Caitlin Clark, because she's the only one who seems to understand what's actually at stake here. Everyone else is focused on getting their piece of the pie. She's focused on making sure there's still a pie to divide. The next deadline is January 9th. That's less than 3 weeks away. Either they figure this out, or we're headed for a disaster. A disaster that could set women's basketball back a decade. A disaster that proves all the doubters right who said the WNBA wasn't sustainable. A disaster that wastes the best opportunity this league has ever had. And if that happens, if they actually cancel the season, don't let anyone tell you it's about fair pay, or player value, or revenue sharing. It's about ego. It's about short-term thinking. It's about a union that couldn't see the forest for the trees. And it's about a league that fumbled the ball on the 1-yard line. Caitlin Clark tried to warn them. She said compromise. She said play basketball. But 98% of the league said no. Let's threaten to cancel everything instead. And now here we are, sitting on the edge of either the WNBA's greatest season ever, or its biggest disaster. Place your bets. January 9th is coming fast. The question isn't whether the owners are offering enough money. The question is whether this league values its future more than its pride. And based on what we've seen so far, I'm not optimistic. 3 players voted no. The rest voted to potentially burn it all down. History is going to remember who stood on which side of this decision. And my money's on Caitlin Clark being one of the smart ones. So, drop a comment right now. Do you think Caitlin Clark voted no? Do you think the players should take the deal, or do you think they are right to hold out for more? Because this is about to get a whole lot messier before it gets better. And when the dust settles, one side is going to look really smart, and the other is going to have a lot of explaining to do.